Welcome everyone to Bleeding Green Nation's Bird Word of the Day. I'm your host Jordan Raanan, and I'm here with Rookpectations Part 2. We did Part 1 the other day. We did realistic rookie expectations for the picks from rounds 1 to 3. We actually put numbers on what I expected them to contribute this year. Now it's a little harder to put numbers on rounds 4 to 7 and the undrafted free agents because their spots on the team and in the roster and on the depth chart are a lot more tenuous than the early round guys. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you my realistic expectations for them with their spot on the roster and what they possibly could contribute for 2012. So we're going to start with Brandon Boykin, the Eagles' 4th round pick, cornerback out of Georgia. Has the best chance of these guys to contribute because he's immediately should step in. I expect him to step in as the kickoff returner. He had 4 kickoff returns for touchdowns in college. Eagles got nothing out of that spot last year from Dion Lewis. I expect him in there. As for punt returns, he did that in 2011 also for Georgia. Returned 1 for a touchdown. I do see him having a good chance of splitting some time with Deshaun Jackson. The Eagles did that last year. They wanted to keep Deshaun Jackson fresh. I kind of expect them to do that this year. And Boykin has a very good chance of being that other guy as the punt returner, especially if he proves to have sure hands in mini camps and training camp. Now, in regards to the nickel cornerback spot, he's going to be battling Jocelio Hansen immediately for that spot, which is almost a starting spot on the Eagles defense. Now, last year, Jocelio Hansen had a very rough year. According to Pro Football Focus, the QB rating against him was close to 110, which is just off the charts. The Eagles need to improve at that spot. I expect Boykin to give him a run for his money. And worst case scenario, I expect him to be the Eagles' nickel corner by midseason. Now, that's a significant contribution for Boykin this year if that comes true. As for the Eagles' 5th rounder, Dennis Kelly, offensive tackle out of Purdue. He's going to be probably the 4th offensive tackle on the roster, so he's a deep reserve, really. I wouldn't expect him to do much this year. Whether you like him or not, King Dunlop is signed to be the backup offensive tackle, right and left side. That will be his role. Kelly likely be the backup to King Dunlop in that role. So, unlikely we'll see much of him. Now, 6th round pick, we have Marvin McNutt, wide receiver out of Iowa. A lot of people expect him to provide a significant red zone presence. Now, you have to temper these expectations, especially with a 6th round pick. I mean, Riley Cooper's already in that role. He's going to have to fight with Cooper for that 4th wide receiver spot. The Eagles love Jason Avant. Plays a ton in that slot spot, the 3rd wide receiver. First 2 wide receivers obviously set with Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin. So, if McNutt even wins that 4th spot over Cooper, which to me, I still think that's a reach at this point. Look at what Cooper's provided the last couple of years. It's unlikely McNutt's going to provide anything significant in 2012. Maybe in 2013 and beyond, he could become a significant contributor. At most this year, 20 catches, a couple hundred yards, a touchdown or 2. I really don't expect more than that from him this year. It would probably be a reach to expect him to catch 40 balls and 6 touchdowns. I really don't see that. So, more of like a spot contributor, I think, is realistic for McNutt. As for the other 6th round pick, Brandon Washington, offensive guard out of Miami. More of a project. The Eagles will probably stock him either on the practice squad, more likely on the end of the roster. So, not going to see much of him this year. This is an interesting one. The Eagles' 7th round pick, Bryce Brown, running back, K-State. Didn't even play college football, essentially. Rarely was seen. Quit the team at Kansas State, and the Eagles drafted him in the 7th round. Obviously, a stretch, a reach. If anything, I see him being a project, a practice squad guy. Don't expect to see much of him on the field this year. Undrafted free agent Chris Polk, running back from Washington, fell in the draft. Some graded him as a 3rd rounder. For injuries, maybe other attitude reasons, fell in the draft, didn't get drafted. The Eagles signed him as an undrafted free agent. He actually has a chance to make this roster and provide contributions. I could see him giving Dion Lewis a real run for his money. Now, it's all contingent on whether he's healthy, his head's right, and he can pass block. That's essential for the Eagles to be able to put them on the field. They have to have confidence that he could pass block. That will be to be determined in training camp and mini camps. But I do think Chris Polk actually has a chance to fight and win the second running back spot over Dion Lewis. So it's possible he contributes. I mean, running back's a tough position. LaShawn McCoy's played 15 games the last couple years. So that would be one game where Dion Lewis and Chris Polk actually get a significant number of carries. But in general, even if Polk is the backup running back, Andy Reid falls in love with his starters no matter how good his backup is. And you can't blame him. Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy. And once he gets into game mode, he doesn't want to take these guys off the field. And can you blame him? So a backup running back on the Eagles, unless their starter gets injured, their contribution is minimal. So unless LaShawn McCoy gets hurt, Chris Polk, even if he's their number 2 running back, contribution's likely minimal. As for other undrafted free agents who I see possibly making this roster and having a potential and a future with this team, cornerback Cliff Harris, I actually see him making this roster. More of it as a reserve, probably won't contribute this year. Damaris Johnson has a chance, slight chance as a kickoff returner, punt returner. More likely he's a practice squad guy, but if he really lights it up in training camp and preseason, it's possible he can make this roster as a kick returner and contribute this year. Now, punter Chaz Henry, far from inspiring last year, did not light it up. The Eagles signed an undrafted free agent punter out of Kentucky, Ryan Tidlaka. Just by nature of the position, if he impresses enough, he can win that spot. Chaz Henry, that spot's going to be up for grabs. Chaz Henry by no means should have that spot secured just based on reputation and past performance. So if Ryan Tidlaka impresses the Eagles, he easily could step in as their punter. I mean, that spot wide open in my mind. Those are the guys I expect to have contributions this year, rounds 4 to 7. Thanks for watching. This is Rookpectations Part 2. I'm Jordan Raanan. See you next time.